Welcome. We are reading and understanding the book of Revelation, reading and understanding the message in order to understand the meaning, always asking what does it say before we try to understand what it means, believing that we can read and understand the book and receive a blessing. We begin in this study with the third vision of the book, marked off by the phrase, in the Spirit. This vision will encompass chapters 17 through the first verses of chapter 21. A brief look at where we've been. In the central vision of the book, John has written about what is and what is shortly to come. The primary vision of the book has now concluded. A throne scene, the Lamb opening the seals of a closed scroll, John receiving and prophesying the contents of a little open scroll. The overall message of the book has become fairly clear. In 7 letters to churches who are suffering for their faithful testimony or witness, as they follow the faithful witness, Jesus is walking at their side, chapters 1 through 3. As a sealed scroll is opened, God is in control, protecting his people, judging unrighteousness, calling all to repentance. But as we see increasing suffering, persecution, and continuing impenitence, the time has come for God to act without delay. Basically, the message of chapters 4 through 10. John receives a second little open scroll. He will prophesy. The rest of the story will soon unfold. In the account of 2 faithful witnesses, the martyrdom of the faithful witnesses is attributed to a beast. We know from Daniel's prophecy that likely refers to a nation. Heaven is furious, hearing the prayers of God's people, seeing their condition. God will be faithful. God will act. The kingdoms of the world will be swallowed up and overcome to become part of the kingdom of the Christ. Somewhat of a summary of chapters 10 and 11. And then in the little open scroll, we see the dragon impotent to undo the salvation work of the Christ child, chapter 12. The dragon's fury against the people of God intensifies, so that Satan finds allies, the beast and the false prophet, the sea beast and the land beast, representing imperial and religious Rome in chapter 13. But the heavenly forces led by the Lamb are more than capable of victory, as announced by 3 angels, with the harvest and the vintage certain, chapter 14. So then we see the last plagues of God's fury against the beast, against Rome, the beast and the false prophet. But that pouring out of the bowls of wrath is only concluded with a quick survey, 5 verses concerning the destruction of Rome. That would summarize chapters 15, 16. And it is against that background that the beginning of chapter 17 seems a bit more normal. One of the angels who had poured out the bowls of wrath, would you like to know more about the fall of the beast? Chapter 17. Or to hear the laments concerning the fall of Rome? Chapter 18. To hear the heavenly rejoicing? Chapter 19. Would you like more details concerning the overthrow of the beast and the false prophet? The latter part of chapter 19. Would you like to know more about the victory of the martyrs and Satan's future? The ultimate doom of Satan is certain, something that we will read about in chapter 20, along with all evil being judged. Death and the grave will be no more. And finally, in the last part of this third vision, the early verses of chapter 21, God has a plan for dwelling among his faithful, overcoming people. All of these themes are included in the third vision. The overthrow of the beast and the false prophet is soon. This is prophetic. It's not yet occurred, but the implications of that conquest will extend far into the future. The third vision of the book begins with the judgment against the woman. When the angel speaks of the judgment of the woman, that judgment again has implications beyond simply giving a more detailed description of the fall of Rome. As already suggested, this vision encompasses other topics related to the judgment against Rome, other events, things that occurred, things that will occur, things related to the certainty of the judgment of God. And again, that's a theme of the book. It's important to keep in mind the biblical description of this vision in the first part of chapter 17, since many tend to stray away from that description, forget the primary focus of the vision, and begin to apply it to all kinds of imagined future events. And we also may be tempted by microanalysis, seeking to understand every little detail when the message is much grander. So the judgment story on Rome will be told or revealed in the third vision. And we will, in this study, look at chapter 17, the identity of the woman and the beast. And in future studies, we'll tie together the storyline or the themes of this section. Chapter 17, verses 1 through 6, John will witness the third vision from the wilderness. In the first section of the vision, the identity of the woman, identity of the beast are revealed. The reference to Babylon in chapter 14 has already been seen as a reference to Rome. The woman is aligned with the land beast of chapter 13. She's carried by the beast according to 17:7. The destruction of the woman and the destruction of the beast coincide. And in the next lesson, chapter 18, we will see that that description points to Rome. A beast with 7 heads and 10 horns points again to a nation. The 7 hills also point to Rome. In chapter 17, verses 7 and 8, an angel reveals the mystery, something that has previously been unknown, now revealed. Remember that the real source of persecution was Satan. Satan is ever present on earth, but after the heavenly victory that we read about in chapter 12, Satan no longer appears before God to accuse. The description, the wording was, is not, now is, ascending from the bottomless pit, going to perdition, foreshadows what we will read throughout this third vision. Satan is the one who empowered Rome, and the description of this section is of Rome. The phrasing clearly imitates the Lamb, pointing us back to that imitation that we read about in chapter 13. And then finally, in chapter 17, verses 9 through 18, a few comments. It is not easy to identify specifically the 7 kings, even though John's meaning is clear. If the idea of Nero being reincarnated, the imagery that was mentioned in our study of chapter 13 is correct, we think of the 5 kings that have fallen, and that would include Nero. And in the history that is yet to be unfolded after Nero's time, a beast that was, is not, and will come is described as an 8th king, reviving the persecution of the church. The reference is to the Roman kings, symbolically summarizing the power of Rome. And we can say that without knowing with great certainty the specific names of the kings and how to match up the numbers. What must be made clear also, not only that this is a reference to the power of Rome to persecute the church, which will be overcome, but there is no mention of an Antichrist without reading into the passage something that is never specifically mentioned and something that is foreign to the context of a vision about the judgment on Rome. The judgment against Rome is being described, and that's the announced topic of chapter 17, verses 1 through 3. Now, let me also say that the 10 horns are vassal kingdoms who reign at the pleasure of the beast. I think you can read the text and see that reference. And afterward, they oppose Rome. And the point is this, as we think about how to understand the details, the certainty of the destruction of Rome, what it might mean for us, the Lamb will be victorious. That's already been described in chapter 14, chapter 16. This third vision gives more details of what was described only briefly in chapter 14 and then in chapters 15 and 16 with the pouring out of the bowls. So we have our context, we have our orientation. Looking forward to sharing together with you our next study as we go to chapter 18 of the book of Revelation and we continue the third vision. May God bless us as we seek to understand this book.